Hey, how are you, everyone? Today, I am going to discuss with you JSON data, how we can use JSON data. JSON data provided to us from the remote server. That's what we are going to work on. For our access control, what we've done so far, hard-coded data, and also we used a local database. So in the local database, we can store the user credential data, and we can retrieve it when we need to access control. This local database does not necessarily hold only the user credentials. It can hold anything that you want to, if you want to save it on your local database. In other words, rather than put it in the hard-coded data, and if you want to save it locally and bring it back next time when you do some additional work, then anyway database is needed in your application. So data can be stored in local device, or the data can be stored in remote database, which is more professionally managed and controlled. So today we will look at access control again for that specific cybersecurity issues, but it's not necessarily only for the access control. There are tremendous different cases of using data that you need to bring it from remote servers. When you first deploy your application, not all the data needs to be stored on your local device. And also, data and some other components needs to be continually updated at the remote side or at the developer side. So it could be downloaded periodically. Periodically means you can define it on your app. Some of the modules, if a button is clicked, then you can access the remote database and then bring it down. So it could be that way. All right. So this slide shows, hey, this is your view, and this is the controller, some of the logics, Swift logics, and then there is a data models. It could be on your local device, or it could be remote. Then this notification updates is wirelessly communicated from your cell phone. You have cell signals, first of all, and also you have Wi-Fi signals. You don't need to say or differentiate when you develop your applications. You simply rely on your network availability. Network availability can be determined by your local device. Of course, you can implement stick to one specific channels, not go through Wi-Fi, but the cell signals only, or Bluetooth signal only, or near field communication, RFID. You can use all those specific communication media. To use other media, then you need, as a developer, you need to subscribe a developer's membership. Those special additional capabilities are allowed to only paid developers. So, okay. This is what we are going to do. Although we have local data models, which is SQLite 3, we're not going to use this today, but we're going to ask HTTP request form to the web server, which can connect the remote database. Of course, here on the web server, we need to have another developments, which I developed already. That is written in PHP. So you can connect the PHP program on the server side. Then this PHP program receives your request and sends out additional request to backend database. This backend database execute the request and send the request back to this PHP server. Then this PHP server convert the database result to JSON format and send it back to your local device. So keep in mind here at the local device, you requested HTTP request format, and when you receive JSON, you need to understand the JSON formats, and therefore a specific field names that you need that should be extracted, and then you can use them. Okay. This slide shows some of those PHP codings, of course, that you need to do. What we actually would like to do, here's a typical sign-in. And this sign-in button access your hard-coded credential data, or you can remove that hard-coded data and open up local data models, SQLite 3, and access that. You could do that, right? Today we'll look at this advanced sign-in. And this advanced sign-in, a separate button. This access the database, remote database, and bring out username and password. So here you enter username and password. The verification of user credentials is to compare username that user entered, and bring that username to the credential data. If there is that username, then take the password which is associated with that username. If there is no username, then you can say, hey, you are not registered. Are you going to register? So if there is a password that can be fetched, and of course, user entered the username and password. So user entered the password and password from the credential data can be compared. If they are matched, then this user knows that password so that we can enter them, right? These days, that's not sufficient. So we want to use a second factor for access control. It could be to send out text message to user and to find out that is that right user that saved their phone number. So server sent out the phone number to, the text code to that phone number. Only those who receives the text code, which is the second factor, access control factor, matched, then those two factors successfully matched. Therefore, we authenticate that user. All right. How can we make for example, to request, set up HTTP request. Then we need to first need to know URL, right? So this is a URL that in this practice use already set up, this PHP sent out. And then when you send out, you need to say user ID, right? Login user ID. And then the HTTP method is post, and body of that HTTP request can be encrypted by UTF-8. You don't need to worry about this, but you just simply copy of those. And then you need to include the download JSON function. This JSON function I developed already, so you can copy it. Okay, only thing that you need to worry about is on your button, you need to retrieve that data and use it. So we'll look at that. I think this is it. So let's look at here what we are going to use. We're going to access this because you already submitted your sensor image files. Then there is a user ID, and that is your first name. So in this simple exercise, we're going to use this is a login name, and your first name, that is your password. Okay, so in this case, Yoon is the login name and John is the password, and we're going to use that. Okay, so this is that ones, and I am bring up the project that we started and stopped the last time. See here the view controllers, and we had here this is access control using the local database, right? That's what we used. So today we are going to add one more button, right? So right. So this is a login button and simple login, and button, maybe fill the button. So we can say not simply button, we can do remote credential login. Okay, remote credential login. And then we have to hear the code. Remember that this there is a button login, right? So we will do another button here, holding down Control and drag and drop here, and then we will say button remote login. All right. So this guy still use the same as this, right? And we want to say here logo code one in logo code and two in logo code. In this verification, we can say wait a minute, I think we need to make it simple. So we send the one, if the code is sent to one, then that is for regular login. If it is number two, then that is remote login. So you can say here the input, you don't need to say any specific parameter, but logo code, that is internally. And then you can do here, say if logo code equals to 1, then you can do everything of this that you guys so far doing. And else if logo code equal number 2, then you can do the next. Okay, so this is not yet done. That's what we want to do. And login name there, and all right. Okay. Now you need to access, or here verify. We should call verify one, right? That is the case for this. I think verify one and verify two doesn't really matter. Right, that's a second factor. So what you need to do is verify one or verify two. Yeah, you can go, or depending upon their code, right? So I think we better to set up the global variable. So here could be variable log code initially 0, so it doesn't do anything. And then we don't do this, we simply call it, and rather if that is typical general login, then you can say self.logcode equals 1. You can set that. And if it is the remote, then you can say self.logcode is 2. And you simply call that. And you don't need to get this from the input parameter, but you simply access it, whatever it is set depending upon the button clicked. Likely here also self-log code. Then you don't need to worry about this. So depending upon user clicked, if user clicked the typical login, then log code, that's a global variable, is set to 1. Remote login button clicked, then that variable is set to 2. And then that global variable is compared when the verify function is called, and when we call it uniformly from the second factor and also from the button clicked. I think this is much easier than the other case. Okay, yeah, this is pretty much done, and then we need to bring up the function that I am going to post, right? Let's see. Oh, this is extra, so we need to delete that. So that should be my SQL result needs to be defined. So all the way up here. It's a long list now, right? So somewhere here I am going to say variable my SQL result equal string colon string. How I get this? That is because in this JSON, overall this is a list, right? The content of a list is a pair of key and value. Key and value. Type key is a string, colon, value is also string. So I can say string, colon, string. And then this should be initialized that way. I mean, declared that way. So I think still we have one more. Oh, ID. Name should be from, what is the name? When this is clicked, name can be in self.login. So we need to put here self.login. So self.login goes with ID. Okay. And it will return. Okay, now I think we need to do some work here. So we need to do this download JSON. So here download JSON. We need to call that this download JSON in this code, because this guy already fetch from this. Let's see, this is this. No, we need to change this. This should be this. Right. So this ID is recognized by PHP code. And when it returns, for example, in this code, print MySQL result. Oh, we need to have self. Okay. Okay, let's try. And if we do un login and password. Oh, June and John. I think John came up. I think. Is it? I'm not sure. I need to see. Okay, that is that. Cannot start the loaded task since it does not conform ATS policy. Could not be loaded because app transfer security policy. Okay, so we need to, what we need to do, there's some policy issue, so go to info Okay, here I think uh, did I? I think we need to set up something like this. The info, then there is a app transfer security settings, allow arbitrary use, and yes. So that should be done. So I'm going to push this a little away and plus sign and find out app trans for security setting. Yes, that came up. So we click OK. So that app transfer security setting. So we will set then plus sign. No, not plus sign. We need to remove this. I think that's the arrow sign. There's allow. Oops, it's not. Okay, we have to do this. And plus, okay, allow arbitrary load. I think this is it. So allow arbitrary load, that is by default to no. So we need to change it to yes. All right, make sure that app transport security settings need to be added to under information property list. And within this app transfer, you have to click this to down arrow so that you have to unfold some options for these settings. And you need to pick allow arbitrary loads with the value yes. And then let's try to see. And then remote create a load. Oh, yeah, I got this all these names, right? So name came up. I said I want to print, so they came up. What I will do then, because I have this, I'm going to simply comment this out, and I am going to use it. So if self my SQL results, their let's see, user ID, right? User ID. User ID, but with the quote. USE-ID. Then it goes to this user ID. And so what I should do. We collect the user ID. I think yeah, we have to. I have to, but I didn't do. Right. I need to ask to send out the specific user and retrieve that user, the particular user ID. And if that user ID is the same as self.login, then we need to check again if self.mysql within that password. Oh, we don't need to do this, right? We can simply say, hold on, this and self.mysql result, and then first name. I need to spell that all small. So first name is self password. Self password. You know what? I'm not going to use this. There's some issue, so I make a new PHP files like here. So I change it to S. Oops, here. Goes a little bit. File name here. Okay. And come back here. S auth authorization, S auth retrieve .php. So I changed the files, and that goes into not only this. I think we need to put more than that. Plus an ampersand and new pass equals and plus self password. So we send the login name and password together to the server. Then this server receives that's USID and UPass. That's what I. Oh, this should be USID. Right. Here. This ID. Okay. And all the way, and it's sent to this. It executes when it goes to this PHP, and then there is a SQL statements, and find out it, and finally send it to the JSON encoded into JSON. Okay, so this is a download JSON, and up here we can test if we receive the JSON properly. So I'm going to run this. Yoon and John. Oh, what happens? Let's see. A 0 byte returns. I need to see this code. No matched, probably. What we can try is simply call that. I'll copy and paste. And then question mark, and then USID equal Yoon and you pass equal John. All right, successfully I got this. When I send this login name and password, then it returns this formats. So I think it is now working. So let's try. So I put here Yoon, John, I think this is not something close view control. Oh, because of this. Yeah, this is not that type now. I think we should do. Yeah, we have the string. What happens here is that we got auth first, and then we have another list. So I think we need to do that way. And also this guy should do in the same way that we do. So string and then at the end we have a close bracket. So come back I think it should be okay. When we have here products, clear all issue. Clean builder and redo. Okay, so I got that. Auth passed, yes, user UN, right? All right, perfect. So now here, what we need to do, we need to do this. We need to do if self MySQL. We first got the auth, right? Auth. And then make sure that that is there. And then first element. And then look at the password. Passed if it says yes. So verification is unlikely here the verification. In this case, remote. The remote side verify users at their end. And it returns only pass or not. So passed. If it is passed, then say yes. Then we can do if it is passed, then what we did was here verified if successfully accessed, right? So we are going to do this same as that one. So here right. Oops. Then we can say self. And oops. Okay. So let's run. So right now that is not there, right? So let's see, successfully accessed, right? So like we did here, now we need to include the two-factor authentication. So button one, if we have this, then when it comes here, it goes directly to this verify, right? Same thing here. So I make a comment, and when this button clicked, then it goes to this two-factor VC, the code, right? When we come here, for example, when you click this typical login, then when this clicked, when that action occurs, it takes a two-factor VC shows, right? Because we connect this button to make a segue to the second, the view. But in this case, we added this later. So there is no such actions. So what we need to do here, we click on the right hand side here. It says plus, right? Put here. So we need to add that to this guy and show only. Then we have to segue. This way segue goes that, and that segue goes the other, right? So two lines there. If we clearly, then anyway, it goes there together, so that we have that, right? Is a two factor VC show only. In this case also two factor VC second view controller and to show only. So we need to set that and then come back here, view controller. Then it goes to the second view factor VC and it'll come back here. If the code, two-factor code is the same, then we go to verify. When it comes to verify, depending upon the log code, typical here, either typical or remote credentials to be used. When it needs to access the remote credentials, then we can go to download JSON code. And then we check if it receives yes, then we can say successfully accessed. Otherwise, it's not. So with that, and I go ahead and run, see how it works. Yoon, John, 6750. So come back here, 6750, and verify me. Then it goes to my remote database and it returns yes, likely here, Yoon is successfully accessed. If you want to go to typical, then what is typical ones? The user that we had, right? If you go this, then you may be able to see that particular ones. And go folder, I show this, right? Then it goes here. Then my database, Jaeyoon and John. So in this case, Jaeyoon login, and password John. I think I put John already, but once more. And 6750 login and 6570 verify me. 6750. Okay, 6750. Come back here and do that, right? If I go to remote, and again 6750, verify me. This is not refreshed, so that is